good day, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for today. Before we get started with Clive's presentation, I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping items for you. You should be seeing on the screen right now the CHBA Net Zero team. So I just wanted to let you know that if you have any questions about any net zero items, we do have a few folks who can help you out. This contact information will also be included in the PDF and the webinar recording, so you can always go back and find them there. And we also have a few housekeeping items to take care of. So I wanted to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded, and members will be able to access this recording in our webinar archives at chba.ca/nzwebinars. For the duration of the webinar, we're going to have you all in listen-only mode. Of course, everyone's familiar with this, just to reduce any kind of white noise background white noise. And at the end of the presentation, there will definitely be time for questions. So please use the questions section of the dashboard throughout the webinar, and I'll make sure to relay those questions over to Clive once he's done his presentation. And you're old hand at this point, I'm sure. So, but as a reminder, if you did want to change your screen view, you just need to click on the little view icon on the top right corner. And you can also change the slide sizes and the video sizes just by using the slider in between the two images. We also wanted to give a big thank you to our gold sponsor, Owens Corning, who is the sponsor of this year's Net Zero webinar series, Owens Corning. And we also wanted to give a big thank you to our Net Zero Council Silver and Bronze sponsor members. So today's webinar, we're going to have, Clive is going to be speaking to us about heat pumps, a more efficient and healthier solution. We know that home construction techniques have seen some impressive advancements in recent years to the building envelope as we strive for greater energy efficiency, yet most builders haven't made big changes to their mechanical systems that they're installing. So the point in case here is that the most used thermal appliance has a coefficiency performance of less than 1. In this webinar, we'll explore the energy efficiency gains that heat pumps provide, so 3 to 5 times more energy efficient than conventional systems, as well as the air quality, so no risk of carbon monoxide, and comfort. The discharge air temperature is variable, benefits to the occupants. Webinar participants will also learn about the pairing of a hydronic coil and heat pump air handler being run off the water heater, which allows a dwelling to reduce the amount of fossil fuel appliances and thus the carbon footprint. So again, once we're done this webinar, we will be posting a recording on our website at chba.ca/nzwebinars. And so now I have a couple polls I did want to run because we want to learn more about where everyone is coming from and what kind of members you are. So if you're a builder or renovator, this first webinar that I've just launched is to find out where you're dialing in from. So we should have all the provinces from across Canada in there. We've also got the territories and other. If you're dialing in from outside of Canada, you can use that category. I'm just going to give a couple more seconds here for more people to be able to join into that poll before I end it. I always say I should have some music in the background, like do 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 do. All right, we're almost there. We cracked over 90% of the participants have answered the poll. So I'm just going to end that and then share the results. So it looks like we've got a majority of folks, so very representative of our membership. The majority coming from Ontario, 53%, with the next from Alberta at 19% and then BC at 17%, but we do have obviously representation from a few other provinces, which is great. So I'll stop sharing that, and then I'm going to move on to the next poll. Sorry, it just popped off on me here. So the next one is on membership type. So we just want to see if you're a builder, renovator, trade contractor, developer. We've got a couple service provider opportunities there for you: product manufacturer, supplier, government, utility, industry association, and then education/academia or research. So we'll give everyone a couple seconds to respond to that poll as well. All right, looks like we're almost at the same amount as with the last poll. We'll give just a couple more seconds here. Awesome. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and end that poll. And then we're going to share the results. And it looks like for our webinar today, the majority of people are coming from the builder population. And we've actually got a big chunk of folks attending from education/academia or research, which is interesting. I don't know that I've seen that many people attend before, so that's great. We've also got 17% of people coming from the service provider, so energy advisors, SOs, architects, engineers, finance, and I think the last category there is realtor. Fantastic, and some representation from the other categories as well. Wonderful. So Clive, I think you've got a good idea there of the kind of, did I not share the results? I did share the results.
Yes.
There we go. Perfect. So I think you've got a good idea as to the folks that we've got on the call today. So why don't you go ahead and share your presentation and we'll get you going.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sonia. Everyone, thank you very much for your time in attending our presentation this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and to share our knowledge and expertise with you in assisting in the development of residential homes in a very energy efficient manner with the utilization of today's energy efficient technology. So we're open to questions, and if we could share or have your questions at the end of a particular segment, it will help to allow the presentation to move on, a little bit more smoother and kind of allow us to maintain our time frame that we've allotted.
Okay, so you'd rather have them during the presentation than at the end?
Yes, during. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try and field those for you. And we don't see your slide deck up yet, so I don't know if you're able to share that. And then I'll keep my eyes on the questions for you, and then I will interject when I see them popping up.
Go.
Perfect. That looks great. Thanks so much, Clive.
Yes. All right. So without further ado, I will get into this presentation on our heat pump technology that we have been doing for quite some time here in Canada with Mitsubishi Electric. So hopefully the presentation will share a lot of information, and any uncertainty in regards to the information that is provided, I'm more than willing to provide an answer to you into your inquiry. So just some of the things that we will look at during today's presentation. I do understand that we have somewhat of a mixed audience, but an audience that has somewhat of a strong technical background in regards to application of HVAC system in the development of residential home, both single family and multi-residence home. We'll look at the history of heat pump energy efficiency, greenhouse gas emission, product features, application of systems, and just some examples of what we've done in the past in regards to residential development, both for single family and multifamily development. Mitsubishi Electric Sales Canada, just a little bit about us. We are a subsidiary of Mitsubishi Electric Sales Corporation in Japan. Our vision and mission is to be able to be the most trusted leader within the industry, providing high technology in HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning to the market, thus helping with resilience in climate care or climate actions for Canada, delivering quality and comfort and value to all Canadians in the product that we deliver, design, and develop. Who we are. Again, Mitsubishi Electric Sales Canada, short form MESCA, was established back in 1979 as a subsidiary of Mitsubishi Electric Sales Corporation in Japan. So in essence, in multiple countries across the world, Mitsubishi Electric Sales Corporation does have a sales representative in each different countries for their corporate division in Japan. Our division here in Canada is a sole operation, so we're solely independent of any other division in any other country. We do have representative in the US. We have a Mitsubishi Electric sales company in the US. However, they are dedicated and specialized in the US market, whereas in MESCA is here for the Canadian market. So products are being developed and shipped into Canada for the Canadian market. We warehouse and store the products here, as well as parts and accessories for the Canadian market. So we're not dependent on the US and for the US to send systems, ship systems and parts over to us here in Canada, adding to the delay in the availability and accessibility of our product. So our product is very much accessible. It's available right across the country, and it is something that you could get your hands on without much sweat. So, given the history of heat pumps in Canada, or heat pumps based on Mitsubishi's development, we can see that heat pump technology has come a long way from its inception back in 1747, when artificial refrigeration was being developed. Typically, what most people in the industry is used to when they talk about heat pump system and ductless system is somewhat what looks like what you're seeing on your screen, that dark wooden wall mounted unit. This was the first type of split system that was introduced by Mitsubishi back in 1967 or 68 to be exact, when we introduced the first mini split system. Since then, we have come a long way, right? So we've gone from your typical and average wall-mounted unit to many different types of indoor unit that we consider to be more aesthetically pleasing. I like to say that our society here in North America, we are driven by aesthetics and convenience. If it looks good, it makes us feel good. So Mitsubishi is able to develop indoor units that are aesthetically pleasing and fit into today's modern design and decor, as well as if the desire is not to be able to view the HVAC system, but to have it hidden in whether it be a closet or a basement, you do have that functionality in our products where it can be concealed and not visible to the eye. A lot of changes in the history of the heat pump that Mitsubishi Electric offers since 1968 has occurred over the years. We're one of the first to introduce cold climate heat pumps back in 2012 in the Canadian market. And we've since progressed on the availability and affordability and accessibility on these products with new invention and new development of the products, where now we have a single zone system that can provide 100% heating capacity down to temperatures as low as minus 20 degrees Celsius. It operates to an extended range of minus 30, where at minus 30, you're pretty much getting approximately 70-85% of your rated capacity. So it's able to maintain the heating capacity. What does this mean? This means that you can now use the heat pump system as the primary and only heating system, because you'll be able to maintain all of the heating capacity down to your winter design temperature. So you're able to now size heat pumps as the primary and only heating system within the space. What makes air source heat pump a viable option in today's development? So progressing more towards energy efficient homes, air source heat pumps are seen as a technology that adapts to the development of residential homes to be more energy efficient. So we look at the use of energy, right? If you could use your energy more efficient, then you're saving on the cost of operation of your energy systems. So for example, you see light, right? Our typical incandescent bulb is about 5% efficient, where you could achieve 80 to 90% efficiency from an LED type bulb. So what you're doing is you're using the electricity that you're paying for in a much more efficient way by using energy efficient products. We see energy efficiency in our gas automobile engines, and we've seen efficiency in our heat pump systems. For example, a natural gas system is not 100% efficient. It's approximately 98% efficiency is what you could get on the market today. So this means that for every 1 cubic meter of natural gas that you're using or that you're paying for, you only get 98% of its use. Similar can be said for propane as well. So these
Right.
forms of energy, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to interject. Warren has a
Yes.
question for you. What is the rated capacity at minus 40 degrees Celsius?
At minus 40. Unfortunately, with our air source heat pump technology, our extended operating range is down to about minus 30, minus 35. So the heating capacity at that point, to be honest with you, it would be less than 50%. but the system would not run down to -40 because the limitation of its operation is roughly about -30, -35, depending on the models.
Right, perfect. And then he's also asking what is the efficiency at those design temperatures? So I think you just answered that as well.
Yeah. And what geographical region are you representing? Representing where?
Warren, I think Warren, you're out from Alberta, right? Let's just see if he'll pop an answer in here. Yep, Alberta.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Warren, I'll be going through some other options that would more likely fit with the application in that geographical location.
Perfect, great. Thanks so much, Clive.
No problem. So efficient use of energy. So one of the benefits that we've known for many, many years based on air source heat pump technology is that it is one of the most energy efficient form of heating your space. The downside on that was that as the ambient temperature got colder, the amount of heat and output that you get and the efficiency of it declined. Mitsubishi Electric has been able to revolutionize the concept of air source heat pump, therefore debugging quite a bit of the stigma that is associated with air source heat pump technology. The technology itself, yes, that concept still remains, or that factor still remains, that as the outside temperature goes down, the heating capacity reduces and the efficiency reduces. But the rate at which you reduce that heating capacity and efficiency is what plays a big part. And this is what you see in our cold climate heat pumps, in that it's capable of holding its rated heating capacity. So the amount of heating output of the system, it can hold that high capacity heat down to temperatures as low as -15. Once you get to -15, it starts to taper off in the amount of heating output that you achieve. So I'll explain further as I go throughout the presentation, and we talk more about sizing the heat pump to meet your load. But the fact remains that the air source heat pump is one of the most energy efficient products that you could use to heat your space.
Clive.
One of the downside to that was the cost in energy, but we're seeing changes where now the cost of natural gas is continuously increasing due to the carbon tax that's applied to these forms of energy. And so therefore, it's making the use of air source heat pump technology more attractive from many different levels, from a comfort level, from an operating cost level, from an environmental resilience and protection level. So, and I'll dive deeper into that as I go throughout my presentation. I believe, Sonia, you were trying to interject. I'm not sure if you had a question.
Yeah, sorry, I do have one more. So Hattie is asking, what is the heating capacity you were saying will be at 75%? So is that at -30? So does that mean that you should have an alternative heating system at the lower temperatures? So I'm going to guess you're going to go over that, right?
Yes, I'll go over that because it depends on the available capacity in our system in size in the heat pump. So once I get to that, hopefully I will shed some answer on your question. If you do not have an answer based on the information that I've provided, feel free, right, to interject again, and I'll ensure that I answer the question to the best of my ability.
Great. Thanks, Clive.
Yep, no problem. Now, air source heat pump technology, how does it work, right? How is it done? It's pretty much the reverse of your air conditioning unit, right? So for those of us that is not quite familiar with the technology itself, if you have noticed standing by the outdoor unit of your air conditioning system during the summer, you feel quite a lot of warm air that's coming out of it. So what it's doing is it's extracting the heat from within the home and dumping it outside. The reverse happens during the winter. The heat pump reverses its cycle, where now it takes the heat from outside and dump it inside. So the discharge air that is coming into your home is going to be a warm air, and the outside air that's being absorbed is cold. Now, one may ask, how could you extract heat from the air when the outside temperature is -15, -20, -30? And that's because that's done with the refrigerant. The refrigerant is a liquid that boils at a very low ambient temperature. So you could have the liquid boiling as low as -25, -30. It's still, there's still enough heat outside in the outside air to be absorbed and to boil off the refrigerant. So that cycle is the cooling cycle is reversed, providing heating in the space. And then in the summer, the cycle is reversed, providing cooling. So in one system, you're able to achieve heating and cooling operation with a single system. So we remember, we take a look at our refrigerator and we can see that at the back of the refrigerator, this is an old refrigerator. It's more now at the bottom of the newer refrigerators. The heat exchanger is at the bottom. So you'll feel that warm air coming from the bottom of your refrigerator today, as opposed to the back of the refrigerator that, occurred, several years ago based on that concept of design. But what it's doing, it's absorbing the heat from the food within the freezer or the fridge, and it's dissipating that heat outside through the condensing coil, or the outdoor coil that's illustrated here. And then it dissipates that heat to the ambient temperature. The refrigeration cycle is illustrated here again, showing heat absorption from the evaporator and then the heat being dispensed from the condenser. This shows you the operating cycle in the cooling mode. And then that cycle is reversed for the heating mode, in which the heat is absorbed from outside and dissipated within the space that requires heating. Again, this is just another illustration that also better explains the efficiency of the heat pump, where you could see 1 kilowatt of energy, for example, is being used. So you're using 1 kilowatt of energy from the grid. But with that 1 kilowatt of energy that you're absorbing from the grid, you're using to operate the heat pump system, it's operating 4 kilowatts, it's absorbing 4 kilowatts of heat from outside. So that additional kilowatts of heat that's absorbed from outside, plus the kilowatt of heat that you're generating from the compressor, gives you 5 kilowatt of heat that's being dissipated inside. So now you end up with a ratio of a 4-to-1, and this is where your efficiency comes in, where for every 1 kilowatt hour of electricity that you're purchasing, you're getting approximately 5 kilowatts of heat. So you can see the benefits there, right? I buy 1 kilowatt of power, but I'm able to deliver 4 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts of power and heat. So it makes using 1 kilowatt of power very efficient. So instead of paying for 5 kilowatts of heat, I'm only paying for 1 kilowatt. And this is how you get the efficiency from the air source heat pump, making it the most energy efficient equipment on the market for heating your home. The downside to this, in which this is now becoming lesser and lesser of an impact on the technology, is that as the outside temperature gets colder, the efficiency and the heating output decreases. But the good news in regards to that is that majority of our days and hours and minutes that's spent during the winter period is at the milder temperature. So therefore, that results in the heat pump delivering 100% of what is required to heat the space for most of the time. Our design temperatures only occurs for 1% of the heating season. Yes, we may get several days in which our outside temperatures are lower than our average temperature. But even though that may occur for a few days throughout the heating season, accumulatively, at times that accumulated hours is less than 24 hours for the entire winter period. So what it really means is our low point and our design temperature occurs very minimal throughout our heating season, and we spend majority of the time at the higher temperatures. Therefore, the overall operating efficiency of the system throughout the winter period leads to less operating costs in heating your home using air source heat pump technology. Displayed on the screen is an illustration of the inverter technology and how we're able to achieve a balanced temperature throughout the space. So I remember incorporating the cold climate air source heat pump in my own personal home. I've done this twice. The first home that I did, I sold it maybe 2 or 3 years after putting in the system. But what I ended up with, or what my issues in that home was, it was a new build. The master bedroom was above the garage, and I had about a 4 or 5 degree temperature difference between downstairs where the main thermostat is, and upstairs in the master bedroom. So in order to cool that space to, heat that space to a desired temperature, I had to make the sacrifice of creating an uncomfortable situation downstairs in the main living room in order to have a comfortable situation in the master bedroom. Now, incorporating the inverter technology, because the operation is continuous, it balances out the temperature in the home. One of the reasons why we ended up with 4 to 5 degree temperature difference between the downstairs and the master bedroom upstairs is because of the traditional system operation, in that it comes on at its full capacity, tries to maintain or tries to attain the set temperature. Now, the thermostat is in the main living area. So once that zone has been satisfied, the system is now turned off. The other zones throughout the home has not reached that desired temperature, but the location of the thermostat is at the desired temperature. So you get that swing, or you get that temperature difference throughout your home because the system, your traditional system, has stopped working. Now, with an inverter system, it's a continuous operation. It never stops. So by supplying a mild amount of heat continuously in the home, what that does, it eventually balances out the temperature throughout the space. So what I ended up with was a 0.5 to 1 degree temperature difference between downstairs and upstairs by simply switching to an inverter type system with that continuous operation. And similar was said during the cooling months, where efficiently I was able to cool and save money as well. On my second home, also put in the cold climate inverter system. I had previously had an 8-SEER keep right system, centralized air conditioning system, in which my electric bill went from an average of $175 a month to almost $500 a month, just trying to keep the house cool using that 8-SEER heat pump. I'm proud to say that I've replaced that last summer and have observed quite a bit of savings. This summer, even though it wasn't as hot as last summer, the savings was significant. I was honestly able to return to my average electric bill, right? My bill throughout the summer was an average of 180, somewhere around there. So it was just a minimal cost increase to my electric bill to have the luxury and the comfort of air conditioning in my home from an air source heat pump system. To better illustrate what we have known and what we've seen in the test results of our system, is that the overall operation of the heat pump system throughout the heating season leads to an operating cost that's equivalent, slightly above, or slightly below natural gas. Natural gas was one of the benchmark because at this given time, it's one of the cheapest form of energy to heat your space. So we can see the results of that study that was conducted by NRCan, Cabinet Energy, in Ottawa, in which they took a sample home and did the analysis within several different cities across Canada, comparing the operating costs of the air source heat pump technology, the air source heat pump, with that of natural gas, propane, oil, electric, etc. So we can see here in several cities across Canada, what is the operating cost of the heat pump in comparison to natural gas. So what is the savings? So you look at BC, for example, you could see by using an air source heat pump in Victoria compared to a natural gas, you would have a savings of $176 per year. Now, this takes into consideration that there is no gas provision to the home. So it takes into consideration $350 to $400 per year that you pay in your customer charge just for having the natural gas connection, right? We see in other cities, such as Winnipeg, where yes, the ambient temperature is very cold there. So the efficiency of the heat pump is not as great as some of the warmer areas. So the savings is not as great as the other areas, but you can see in milder areas, right, such as Ontario, Southwest Ontario, the savings, annual savings, $229 if you're in Toronto, operating an air source heat pump, cold climate, versus a natural gas system. In Quebec and the Eastern province, the savings is greater because the cost of natural gas in that region is much higher than anywhere else in the country. For example, you take the cost of natural gas in Quebec versus the cost of natural gas in Alberta, and it is a significant difference to the cost. This is why you're seeing such a great savings in the eastern provinces. Montreal, $659, Fredericton, $880 in savings in operating an air source heat pump as compared to a natural gas system. So here we see also another comparison of savings against natural gas based on the charges, right? Annual savings based on variable energy charges and annual savings based on fixed energy charges. So in overall, in general, there isn't a major difference in the operating costs in using an air source heat pump versus using one of the cheapest form of energy, which is natural gas. Based on some of the studies that we've done and that Natural Resources Canada has done for us, they've seen that approximately 48% less energy is used when heating the same space with an air source heat pump versus a natural gas system. Now, the reason why you do not see that reflection in the operating cost is because the price of natural gas is very, very cheap. It's very low. But even with a record low, as such low prices on natural gas, because of the high efficiency of the air source heat pump, you're able to have somewhat of a similar or operating cost that's on par to natural gas. What will we pay for energy efficiency? So Canada, through its commitment to the Paris Accord, has developed the Pan-Canadian framework as a measure in reducing Canada's greenhouse gas emission and sticking to their commitment on greenhouse gas reduction as per the Paris Accord. So one of the aspect of the Pan-Canadian framework is targeting the lowest hanging fruit. So they've targeted the transportation sector and the building sector as being the lowest hanging fruit for achieving GHG reductions. And we see that promotion and transition into federal, provincial, municipality, and utility programs that have action care climate plans that presents a measure for resilience against climate care. They've also targeted the use of heat pump technology to assist with greenhouse gas reduction. So studies have shown that, gas stoves does provide or does contribute to GHG increase. And it does also show that, the use of gas stove also provides indoor air quality pollutants, right? That doesn't make the indoor air quality as pure as it can be. So there's even greater reason to transition from fossil fuel use in heating our space to more of an energy efficient type of technology using electric energy. So we see a breakdown of carbon emissions. So we talked about carbon contribution, where the building sector, right, contributes as much as approximately 43%, right, towards the greenhouse gas emissions that is being emitted here in Canada. The transportation system or transportation sector is approximately 34%, right, responsible for contribution of GHG buildup within our environment. So these are the segments that are being targeted for the greatest GHG reduction. On space heating and cooling, right, we can see that within our home, the bulk of the energy is used up by space heating. And that lion's share of space heating is really done by natural gas. That's a leading form of energy and type of heating system that's used throughout the country for heating our homes and occupied space, whether it be commercial, residential, etc. So taking a look at the product features. So again, with a cold climate heat pump, what defines a cold climate heat pump, right? There's three factors that defines a cold climate heat pump. The amount of heating that you get at the low temperatures, the efficiency of the heat pump at the low temperatures, and the operating range of the heat pump. So you've got to be able to operate to very low temperature range. We are at approximately minus 30 to minus 35. We are not at minus 40 for heating as yet, but we continue. The industry continues to get better. Other manufacturers continue to improve on the performance of air source heat pump technology because the government is driving the manufacturers to produce more energy efficient technology and systems that can help with GHG reduction. So in a cold climate system, there's two test points or two reference points that's used, minus 15 degrees Celsius and minus 25. Why are these 2 points here? When we're traditionally used to 2 points being 47 or 8 degrees Celsius and 17 or minus 8 degrees Celsius. Those are the two test points that majority of the heating system are tested at. So when we look at the reasons behind that, Canada is very cold. We see the heating output and the efficiencies of the heat pump at these temperatures, but we don't see it at the cold point. So those 2 points represent operation of heat pump system in southern regions that are south of Canada. HSPF region 4. So region 4s are more milder. Areas in Canada that is considered to be region 4 might be Vancouver and Victoria because the climate is more milder there. But for the rest of the country, we are in region 5, which is a colder climatic condition and region. So our average temperatures in these regions sits more around minus 15, and the average of the cold point sits more around minus 25. So in Canada, we look at these 2 points, right, as to what is our heating output, the efficiencies, and the operating range. So a cold climate heat pump must be able to maintain its heating capacity at the higher temperatures, 47 degrees Fahrenheit and 17 degrees Fahrenheit. It should be able to maintain that heating capacity at temperatures as low as minus 15 or lower. So we're at the point where we're maintaining that heating capacity down to temperatures as low as minus 20. And we continue to work to improve that, where we can offer 100% capacity down to minus 25, therefore improving air source heat pump technology being applicable as the primary and only heating system. So we see here with our product where 80% of the heating capacity is available at the low point of minus 25. Operating efficiency is above 1 at these temperatures, and we can go right now as low as minus 30, minus 35, given the different models that you're working with. So we see our graph that is being illustrated here, where yes, at the milder temperatures, you get more heating capacity, right? You get a lot. But the reality is at the higher temperatures, 17 degrees Fahrenheit, 17 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees Celsius, the reality is you do not need this high capacity of heat. Where you really need the high capacity of heat is down at the lower temperatures. So for a Canadian application, we need the heating capacity here at the lower temperatures. And you can see with a cold climate heat pump that it maintains the heating capacity, and the degradation of the heating capacity is at a lesser angle than your standard heat pump. You can see on a standard heat pump that it loses its capacity as the ambient temperature drops below 0. And it does so very sharply. So a lot of the capacity is being decreased, where you've got in cases less than 50% of the available capacity once you get down to the milder temperatures. So these heat pump systems are not really capable of operating as the primary and only heat pump system. We see, for example, we take Ottawa and we look at the average temperatures throughout the heating season in Ottawa. We take a look at January, and we can see the low temperatures in January being minus 15 degrees C and the higher points being minus 8. So during the day when it's warmer and our electricity rate is higher, we're operating more efficiently. Air source heat pump cold climate technology is operating more efficiently when the energy is at a greater cost. In the night, you do lose some of the efficiency because it's colder, but your energy cost is also lower during the night. So you can see here on the average winter temperatures or temperatures from 2020 in Ottawa that your low point was at minus 15. So using an air source heat pump using air source heat pump technology, you could size the heat pump to meet 100% of the heating load down to the winter design temperatures. We've seen improvement in our product offering. I'm not going to go into great details on the features, but just to say that we're continuing to improve our product line, where on our single zone wall mounted model, you can achieve 100% heating capacity down to minus 20. And then it operates down to minus 30, where the capacity starts to taper off. So when you get down to minus 25, you may end up with maybe approximately 90, 92% of your available heating capacity, still quite a bit. So you can really size the heat pump to serve as a primary and only heating system. We've improved on the available systems or available types of indoor unit. We see our SLZ models, which is our four-way cassette, a one-way cassette, and we also see a concealed ducted system. So the low profile system here is an option where there's limited space, and we've got our multi-position vertical air handling unit that is similar, as a similar look to our furnace units in our mechanical room in the home. We do have another type of indoor unit. This is a low wall mount unit. So this unit is used for, let's say, for example, PTAC replacement. If you've got radiators that was up against a wall coming through the floor, this type of unit can be used to retrofit those applications. New to our lineup of product is our add-on coil to existing furnaces. Whether or not you have an existing electric furnace, propane furnace, or natural gas furnace, this product is applicable. Unfortunately, it's not applicable to an oil furnace because of the high temperature ratings on the oil furnace. But coming spring of 2024, we will have a full lineup in the add-on coil to an existing furnace. So this improves the flexibility for a hybrid approach. So whether or not you want to develop an all-electric or a hybrid approach to your net zero or your standard multi or single family development, this product can fit in greatly, in which it gives you the option to do all electric or a hybrid of electric and fossil fuel, for example. For an all electric, you wouldn't necessarily use the add-on coil. You would use the vertical air handling unit to provide you with an all electric option. Here we see our multi-zone systems. So all of the indoor units type that we've just illustrated to you, they are all compatible with a multi-zone condenser, in which that can be used to heat and cool multiple zones, maintaining separate temperatures in each zone and reducing the temperature in the zone when it's not being occupied, to also further conserve energy. So we see more of an illustration of the application. We take a look at our ducted model. So we see here in this application, this was a air handling unit or cold climate heat pump system that's been used to provide heating and cooling. And in some projects that we've done, we've also used it just for cooling and integrate it with a secondary heating source and use one thermostat to control both systems. So it does provide you the flexibility, again, for a hybrid approach or an all-electric approach. Different types of indoor style units that's available for our cold climate heat pump system. We've got our one-way cassette that is more aesthetically pleasing than let's say, a low wall mounted or a high wall mounted product. One of the cute things about this product is that it fits between 16-inch on center joists. So, and the cavity is less than a foot. So it's approximately 8 inches in height. So this will fit right within the ceiling cavity based on today's standard for residential home development. So the body of it is concealed within that ceiling cavity, and the installation is pretty simple from that point on. The refrigerant pipe and the electrical connection comes out of the side. It's run in between the joists and fed out to the exterior wall for connection to condensing coil. Are you guys able to see my mouse on the screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, all right. So that will serve as my illustration tool.
Perfect. I just wanted to let you know,
have,
Clive, we do have a couple questions I've been hanging on to, and we've got about 13 minutes left. So I just wanted to do a time check.
Okay, all right, sure. I've got a couple more slides. I can pause and take a few questions while they might still be fresh in everyone's mind.
Okay. So going back to that question we had earlier, what is the heating capacity you're saying will be at when it will be at 75%? Was that at -30? So I know you had a really great chart there that showed some of that. And so they're asking, does this mean that you would need to have an alternative heating system at those lower temperatures? So say in the cold areas, I know that Calgary for a couple of years now has been having some pretty bad cold snaps that have lasted like 2-3 weeks over the winter time.
Yeah, so in our geographical areas where the ambient temperatures, design temperatures, for example, are below -30, for example, Calgary, yes, you would need to incorporate a secondary heating system. The A coil for that region is somewhat of an ideal product in that majority of that region is heated with natural gas because of the cold temperatures there and the limited operating range. You'd need to incorporate an auxiliary heat system. The beauty, though, is even though you're incorporating an auxiliary heating system, the cold climate heat pump would do majority of the work, which does result into reduction in your heating costs. Even if you use the cold climate heat pump to provide heating during the shoulder season and you use a gas furnace in the midst of the shoulder season, you'll still achieve operational cost savings over fossil fuel, even though natural gas is very cheap right now.
Right, exactly. And so just a few more questions in that kind of area. Someone is asking then, what about a 3-season heat pump? So I don't know if you've talked about that at all.
Could you a 3-season heat pump?
Yeah.
If you could shed a little bit, a bit more clarity.
Yeah, so it's an anonymous attendee, so I'm not sure who sent the question. So my thinking is that they were probably referring to using it through the 2 shoulder seasons and probably for summer, and maybe not for winter. So have you seen anyone using them? And I think maybe this question comes along with folks who maybe have heard more about air source heat pumps that aren't cold climate. I actually am in a house that has the air source heat pump only working until 0 degrees, and then it switches over to the furnace. So that maybe is seen as a 3-season type of air source heat pump. So maybe it's just referring to not having a cold climate one.
Okay, if they could just indicate that the understanding that we've explained is correct, then our answer to the question will be correct. If the understanding is incorrect, right?
Yeah,
our answers are going to be accordingly.
Perfect. So I'll wait for that anonymous.
Just let me know, and then I'll answer the question accordingly.
Perfect. I'll let that person. Okay, so someone they just said correct. That was the understanding. So we got it right.
Right. So in that case, in terms of, I'm going to use their phrase, 3-season operation of the heat pump, you'll achieve your greater savings in the shoulder season, and use especially in the colder areas, and then using, let's say, for example, the natural gas furnace to provide heating during the midst of winter. So in that case, you sort of get the best of both worlds. Now, what has been happening in the industry now is we're having smart controllers that's been now developed to the next level. We have the next level of smart controllers that determines the operation sequence. So not the operation sequence, but the share of operating time between both systems. So these smart thermostat are looking at several different parameters. They're looking at the cost of fossil fuel energy. They're looking at the cost of electricity, the outside temperature, the efficiency of both equipments, and the demand on the equipment, placing that into an algorithm and seamlessly in the background, transitioning into operation between the gas furnace and the air source heat pump, or whatever other secondary heating source that you're using. The algorithm that's built into the smart thermostat would do the fuel switching between the system, leading you to the ultimate energy efficiency and operating cost of your system. But on old, what I find out, this is through experience with the use of the product in my home, is that the savings are very great in the shoulder season. And that savings that you achieve in the shoulder season also offset the higher operating costs that you get in the middle of winter. So then when you balance that right throughout the heating season, your operating cost to natural gas, like I said, is somewhat on par, slightly below, or slightly above, but not a significant difference in the operating costs when you compare to other form of energy and heating systems such as electric, propane, oil, wood stove, etc. Your savings is much greater in that segment than it is in natural gas because of the price, the current pricing on natural gas. So hopefully that sheds some light on your inquiry.
Yeah,
Overall, what
absolutely.
I'm saying is you can't go wrong with cold climate air source heat pumps.
Yeah, but you know what? I'd have to say what you just brought up about the controls is such a critical piece because that is something that is continuing to evolve and is I think for me the game changers in the application of air source heat pumps, because previously it was, you know, you turn the furnace gets turned on at this point, the air source heat pump gets turned on at that point. But when you have those algorithms in the background calculating everything based on either cost or, I mean, we've got some homeowners who want to do it just based on the carbon, not even the cost. Because they are so cost efficient, a lot of the times they're like, it's okay, I'm okay to spend like an extra $100 as long as I'm optimizing on the carbon side of things. So you can do some programming based on that. Someone was actually asking here which thermostat, and I think it's not necessarily the thermostat, but the controls. I'm assuming that they are Mitsubishi controls that are specific to your product that you're using this with, right?
No, it's a third
Oh,
party. It's a third party aftermarket controller. This is the
okay,
direction that the smart controllers are going towards.
great.
There's
Okay.
one that's actually available on the market right now, made by BKR, and the dual fuel control with that thermostat was studied by Natural Resources Canada. They did a pilot study and a program on dual fuel switching. Also,
Mhm.
Enbridge in Ontario, they ran a pilot using this technology to switch between air source heat pump and fossil fuel heating. We have other utility programs that are interested in doing similar studies. So overall, what we had suspected is that the operating cost of air source heat pump is not a whole lot more than the current cheapest form of heating your space, which is natural gas. So if someone wanted to be energy efficient, they wanted to be more environmentally conscious and to contribute to the resilience of climate care in Canada, they would be able to use this technology without sacrificing an increased operating costs in doing so. And for developers that are using this technology in their home, they can rest assured and be comfortable that what they're delivering to the homeowners is an energy efficient home where the operating cost of that home is expected to be less than a traditional house.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple questions I think we can answer for that one here. So someone was
Sure.
asking hybrid equals when you switch from air source heat pump to furnace. So hybrid basically means you've still got dual fuel. So there's homes, a good chunk of the homes in the net zero program are using the electric air source heat pump with a backup furnace. Some of them electric furnaces, some of them gas furnaces. So you could do an all electric home in that type of model if you're also using an electric hot water tank. So
Mhm.
so that's what that's referring to when we're talking about hybrid. And then the anonymous person was asking what thermostat, or I guess maybe controls, that you were referring to. Do you know the brand or the manufacturer of that aftermarket control company?
BKR.
BKR. Okay, so then
Yeah.
that's the same one that presented, I think, at the spring camp last year in April. Or sorry, this year. That was this year.
Right. It's possible. I wasn't
You weren't at
in
that one,
attendance.
yeah.
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 So yeah.
Just in light of time, we've got 4 more minutes left. I think you said you have a couple more slides. Why don't we go through those, and then we'll see if we can take a couple more questions after those slides.
Certainly.
Oh, your slide deck just disappeared.
Okay. What are we seeing now?
We are seeing your ceiling recessed unit in slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
So this just gives you an illustration of, the installation of the outdoor unit. It can be mounted high on the wall, low on the wall, right? It can be mounted off the wall on a stand, right? But in the installation of the air source heat pump, it needs to be elevated off the ground at approximate height of where your average snow accumulation may occur. So basically, you don't want to put it on the ground and allow snow to accumulate in the condenser. You want to raise it a bit off the ground, typically about 18 inches off the ground, right? So we see some alternative measures. So if you decided that, okay, I'm going to go all electric and put in an electric air source centralized system, if you at a later date wanted to do a hybrid system, that can be achieved with a hydronic coil that's incorporated into the centralized system, and the hydronic coil being fed by a combi boiler or any other type of natural gas boiler. I'm going to skip through this here in the fact that we're a little bit pressed for time, and just say that this is an illustration of the controls controlling a secondary heating system. But this is more with Mitsubishi controls, with the aftermarket controls being more advanced and have a more frequent change and update than our controllers. We've developed interface that allows the homeowner to use a standard or smart thermostat that they're more familiar with to be integrated into the operation of the system, right? Looking more at developments in multi and single family across the country. We see here West 5 development that's done by Sifton, in which these are townhomes that is in southwestern Ontario using a centralized air source heat pump system. See the Altar project here. This is using more of a concealed heat pump system, centralized system. And here's an example of the illustration of the condenser, right, being placed above the ground. The operation on the condenser is very quiet. We've got 300 Manor in St. Thomas. This was one of the net zero MERB demonstration project where there were 60 suites across 2 buildings using centralized cold climate heat pump systems. So when you get into MERBs, the heat loss in the individual suite is usually much lower than the heat loss in single family development. So air source heat pump technology and being a primary heating system is even more applicable in multi-unit family development. We see aftermarket retrofit of single family homes, right? So I should say retrofit of single family homes with the centralized air source system, right? So this is our Zuba Central centralized air source system that is being fed into a centralized ductwork. It does seem as if they're using the heat pump water heater to have a fully all-electric system here. So this is an aftermarket, or I should say retrofit application. In regards to the warranty on the product, if it's installed by a certified MEQ dealer, so these are dealers and contractors that have been thoroughly trained on the product in terms of its service, installation, and application, then an extended 10-year warranty is applied. The standard warranty is 5 years on the parts, 7 years on the compressor. And when installed by an MEQ dealer, that is extended to 10 years parts and 10 years compressor. So typically speaking, in the housing development industry, some of the developers will have an associated contractor that conducts all the HVAC work that they do in the development of homes. If that is the case, we can arrange for training on the service, installation, and application and sales of our product so that you can ensure that your contracted contractors are actually installing the product properly so that it will work accordingly. And that concludes my presentation to you today. I am hopeful that I was able to shed some light, share more information, and hopefully you'll walk away from today's presentation with a better impression, better understanding, and a greater acceptance of air source heat pump technology.
Great. Thank you so much, Clive. I know we're now past time, but we do have a few more questions. Any chance you have 5 minutes for those who want to stay to answer those?
Yes, certainly.
Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the top. One of the people, Hattie, is asking, are you claiming that heat pumps will provide a better comfort level? And with defrosting cycles, is this a valid claim?
Yes, it is, right? Speaking specifically to the Mitsubishi Electric product, right? I can't speak to other manufacturers, but in regards to the Mitsubishi Electric product, we've got what's called smart defrost, right? And I speak from my personal experience with the product. What I talked earlier about that delta T in the temperature between downstairs and upstairs, and how the continuous operation of the system balanced out the temperature in the home. And that mild discharge temperature and the low fan speed is what also leads to comfort. When we're in a space, in the office or at home, and we're feeling discomfort from our HVAC system because it's too hot or too cold, what we're actually feeling is the discharge temperature from the system. So when you're in your home and that furnace kicks in and it's blasting warm air in the space at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, 39 degrees Celsius, if you're close to the register, you're going to feel warm and you'll get uncomfortable. Flip the cycling cooling mode, you're sitting close to the register. This is typically, especially in an office environment, and with the females in the office environment, you wear long sleeve or you wear a sweater, right? Us men, we're usually in long sleeve jackets. So the discharge air that's coming off the vents, we do not feel that cold as much as the females in the office. So this is what leads to the discomfort. How does Mitsubishi changes that or address that situation? The temperature of the air coming out of the system is much milder. It's not as cold and it's not as hot. It is also coming off at a slower speed, so you don't feel that draft of the air. And that is what really makes the space uncomfortable. The room can be 22 degrees, which is a comfortable temperature. But when you sit close to the register and you're feeling 39 degrees coming off of that register, it makes you hot. In the summer, when you're feeling that 8 degrees Celsius temperature coming off the register, that makes you cold. The room itself is comfortable. So this is how we're able to increase the comfort in regards to the defrost. When you go into defrost mode, it's flip the cycle and it's doing cooling. But what we do in order to reduce the amount of cold air that goes into the space during the defrost cycle, we lower the fan speed during defrost cycle. And we also, so then that prevents cold air from coming into the space. We have also what's called smart defrost. So it only activates the defrost cycle if it's needed. Some other system, they have a program frequency in which the defrost cycle comes in just in case there might be a need for it. But our smart defrost is able to tell if it is needed and then it activates it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. No, that's a fantastic response. And I feel that even living in a home, you get used to the difference too, and you adjust your thermostat differently than you would have before when people were like cranking it high, cranking it low, and you just don't get that same kind of big sways, right?
Right. So then, you avoid that thermostat war. I
Yeah.
remember I had a thermostat war with my mother-in-law. We were living in Brampton for 6 months while we get ready for a new house to be finished built.
Oh gosh.
And I would turn it up. I go upstairs. She comes out of her room. She turns it down. She goes back. And for the night
Oh,
and the day, we're playing that thermostat war,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, yeah. So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Um,
inverter system operating continuously helps to solve that problem as well.
Absolutely. I've got a question here from Gregory. He's saying in the area I build, the city doesn't allow heat pumps in side yards due to them being historically loud. I would like to argue with them that this is no longer the case. What is the max decibel level of the heat pumps? And I know you talked about them being quieter now, so I think you've got some
Right.
data on that as well, right?
Yes, yeah, we have data on in our product brochure. On average, if you're going with a ductless, it's the indoor unit is somewhat just under, depending on the model. I would say anywhere from about 23 decibel to maybe about 18, 19 decibels, right, on the indoor unit. And that sound rating that we give is when the fan is at a high speed. So when
Yeah.
you drop the fan down to its lowest speed, it's even quieter. Typically speaking, with the average ambient noise internally inside, you're not going to hear the fan on the indoor unit. No.
Yeah, even mine
The
on the
outside,
outside, it's quiet.
yeah, the outside unit is similar as well. You may hear a bit of noise in the night when the ambient temperatures are lower. Again, the noise level that we publish is based on worst case scenario, based on the condenser running at its highest fan speed, the compressor running at its highest fan speed.
Right.
But the actual and normal operation, the compressor is running at a much lower speed, so is the fan. So
Okay.
the actual operating noise level is much lower than what is being published.
I'm wondering, Clive, maybe if you have those specs in some of your data sheets, can you pop a slide into on the decibels of the outdoor units into your deck? And
Yes.
then that way, when I post it, everyone will be able to get access to that information.
Sure.
Perfect. I think I'm going to try one more question. Well, I'm going to answer one here. So Glenn is asking, if someone were to proceed with a cold climate air source heat pump with no alternative heat source, what is the expected impact to the indoor air temperature if the outdoor temperature were to drop in the below 30 range? First, my answer is you won't be allowed to do that. The building code won't even let you build a house like that. But theoretically speaking, Clive, have you guys done any studies? Say maybe if there was some sort of a situation where there was only a heat pump and you're seeing the minus 30 temperatures outside, what would happen?
So if the heat pump is the only form of heating, it's your primary heating, and it drops to minus 30. Depending on if it's a model that has an operation to minus 35, it will still continue to operate and produce heating output. You might be at that temperature, you might be maybe 30%, no, sorry, not 30, maybe 40, 50% of the available capacity. So your auxiliary heat would make up the difference. If you do get to outside temperatures that are beyond the operating range, then the system would temporarily go into a standby mode until the outdoor temperature increase. In that case, now the controls would initiate the auxiliary heat to provide you with heating when it does go down to those temperatures. Again, the occurrence or the length of time in which that occur would equate to, in some cases, less than a day, less than 24 hours. It may occur several times throughout the winter, but the accumulated time that you're at those temperatures typically is less than a day. When you look at your winter design temperature, which is the average of the coldest temperature for that region,
Yeah.
that occurs 1% of the heating season. So the accumulated time is 1% of the total heating season. So that should give you an indication of the amount of times that we spend at the lower temperatures. We spend a greater time of our heating season at the higher temperatures, meaning that the heat pump for majority of the heating season, 99, I would go as far as to say 95% plus of the time during the heating season, your heat pump can serve as your primary heating source.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. So we're now down to 60 people hanging on here, which is great.
Yeah.
We do have a couple more questions. So what I'm going to just say is I'm going to pass these along to you, Clive. So there's questions about, getting a list of approved installers. What is the process by which you install these homes to replace a gas furnace? So some really great technical questions here. So
Right.
what I'll do is I'll pass those along to you so you can respond to those people directly.
Okay.
If you want to add some more kind of information like links on your website in terms of getting a hold of approved installers. But I think it's great that you're also training installers to appropriately install your product. I think that's a great move. So kudos to you guys for doing that. And thanks again for such a great webinar, Clive. It was much appreciated to put the time in for this today. And we'll make sure to get everything posted up for everyone by end of day tomorrow, so everyone will have access to the deck and the recording.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sonia, for providing us this opportunity to share with the industry our knowledge, our expertise, and to help to promote the awareness and acceptance of air source heat pump technology.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, take care. Have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.